Okay, so we said that we're up to Ben Shishim, we're up to a 60-year-old. So we said that a 60-year-old, Ben Shishim, Lezikna, a 60-year-old has reached the age of Zikna, which is basically old age. And, as at a stage of living. I mean, thank you very much. 60 is old. Shkayach. Ben Shivim Leseva, and a 70-year-old is reached fullness of years. Well, I mean, again, yeah, it's all the others we talked about were really, stages of development. Was about a 15-year-old, a 20, an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old. All of those are stages of development. This just sounds like, it's a natural thing you get to Zikna, you get to old age, you get to Seva, you get to you get to fullness of years. 80, and this sounds like it's trying to make you feel better. Ben Shmonim Legavura, right? 80 is the peak of strength. I'm not putting anybody down, but I wouldn't call an 80-year-old, Atlas. I wouldn't put him in the ring with Muhammad Ali. Like what does that mean? That 80 is your year of strength. Like that's the age of strength. 90.
How is you put it's in quotes in the translation? So what is it about
so it's like
that indicates that you put it in quotes like that?
Right, but it's probably some kind of euphemistic statement. Well, we'll see in a minute. Okay. At 90, a bent body. Is that great? You got a lot to look forward to. 90, wow, I can't wait to have a bent body. Wow, that's going to be awesome. I'm sorry. I just the wording is weird. And then at 100, it really gets much better. As good as dead and gone, completely out of the world. I can't wait till that 100th birthday. I'll be invisible. I'm dead and out of the world. What is this part of the Mishnah teaching us? Okay. So in a few minutes, we're going to see, I think, a very, very profound understanding of the Mishnah and a profound understanding really of life. Let's deal with the word zaken. That we say that at 60, a person is a zaken. A person's considered old. Old is not talking about chronological. In the Torah, very often, we speak of rabbis and sages in the term of a zaken, the zakenim. When we talk about how the Torah transmitted, Moshe Kibbutz Torah from Sinai, Moshe got the Torah from Sinai, Masaril Yeshua, he gave it to Joshua, Joshua gave it to the elders, and the elders, he gave it to the zakenim, to the elders. Moshe had 70 elders helping him. They weren't necessarily old people, but what they were is, the word zaken is a contraction of the word zekana, and the implication is to chachma. Zekana means this one is acquired. This one is acquired wisdom. Person hits the age of 60, and the person is a wise person. Now, not a genius, not always the most perceptive person in the world, but there is a perception that comes from experience, from sheer experience, that a wisdom that comes from sheer experience, that when a person hits the age of 60, we venerate that. We give deference to it, we give respect to it, because this is not talking about a Torah scholar. This is not talking about somebody who has great Torah wisdom. This is talking about a zaken, a person who has hit this age of zeh kana chachma. Of this person has acquired wisdom. When Avram Avinu got old, the Torah tells us, Hashem berach es Avram bakol. God blessed Abraham with everything. There's a lot of interesting discussion in the commentaries of what everything means. Whether everything means that the word bakol was the name of his daughter, that he had a son, Yitzchak, and he also had a daughter who was called bakol. Why she was called that is a separate issue, but that she was called bakol, and that when it says God blessed Abraham with bakol, it doesn't mean just translating into the word everything, but everything means that he had a daughter. There are other ways of explaining it, but one of the ways of explaining the word bakol, that God blessed Abraham with old age and with looking old. Until Avram Avinu, nobody looked old. So that meant that Avram and Yitzchak, Avram at 100, 137 and Yitzchak at 37 looked exactly the same. And there was no way to tell the difference between the two. Now, for some, that might be like a great advantage, because you try all your life to take away the wrinkles and to smooth out the skin and to wear clothes, younger clothes, so that you look contemporary and relevant and younger, right? We work out in the gym. For some, it's just for health, but for others, it's really because they're trying to maintain a youthfulness and a youthful look. But the problem with that is that when you can't tell the difference between one generation and another, then you can't give and respect the generation that's older just by looking at them. And the truth is, again, just by sheer living life, you deserve a respect and deserve a connection. Knows that we need to connect you. We need to get from you what we can get, because you have a wisdom. And if that's the case, this was actually a big bracha, that you should be able to tell the difference between an old person and a young person, so that you can give the respect you need to an old person, so that you can get from that old person what you need to get from them. So then that's an incredible thing. I had an experience once that I was in Israel. I don't know, Roland, you might have been with me on this trip. I don't remember, but we took a trip to Israel, and it was Yom HaZikaron. It was Israel Remembrance Day, and we went to the prison in Jerusalem. There was a prison in the time of from the time of the British, the British occupation, the British mandate, and the prison was actually relatively boring. But it was a prison. It was if you're into Jewish history, then it was something fascinating. There were fascinating things that happened there. There was a rabbi that spent a lot of time in that prison visiting people. That the British threw into the prison. His name was Rabbi Aryeh Levine. They wrote a book about him called "A Tzaddik in Our Times." He was a person that was really from like another world. And the way he reached out to these prisoners, who were really they were political, military prisoners. So we go in, whatever. There's not much open on Yom HaZikaron, so we had to pick an activity where you can get into somewhere. So we got into this place, and we're walking around, and people are tired, and it was an emotional day. We had gone to the cemetery in the morning, and we had seen all these people mourning over their children, their fathers, their brothers that had died in Israel's wars, and it was just an emotion. It was beautiful, but just an emotional day. And as we're standing there was an old man. In Jerusalem, there's no shortage of old men, and whatever. The guy was just walking around, and somehow somebody offered him a seat or something. There was just some interaction because he was an old person, and we find out that this guy was in the prison, and he had come for a Memorial Day service where he was supposed to speak at the service. The service was supposed to be what he thought 4:00 in the afternoon, but it was actually 10:00 in the morning. And he had missed the service, and he was upset. And so he sat down, and then he started to talk. And we pulled everybody in. People were already in the bus. People were outside. We pulled everybody in, and we got to hear the story of a person who was who shot at the British and who was shot at by the British. And this guy was one of the heroes of the establishment of the state of Israel. It was just an incredible experience. Had this guy been, imagine, had he been a very strong young man walking around, you wouldn't see a story on him. But the guy, his whole body was a story. Like, you just saw the way the guy was walking and the way that the guy was talking. You saw there was a story there. This concept of looking like an old person is to our advantage, because it invites us to be able to recognize that there's something special here. The Torah itself gives us a mitzvah. Torah says, "Mipnei seva takum," in front of a seva, which is a 70-year-old, you have to stand, which, by the way, is halacha. When a person 70 years or older walks into a room, you're obligated to stand for that person. Um, Mipnei seva takum, v'adarta pnei zaken. And you have to venerate. V'adarta means see the beauty in the pnei zaken, in the face of an older person. Because the beauty that you're seeing in the face of an older person is the beauty of history. History is an important thing for us. Looking backwards is an important thing for us. I'll tell you a beautiful thing in that pasuk. That pasuk says, "Mipnei seva takum," in front of a seva, in front of an older person, you should stand up. It could be understood in another way also. That mipnei seva, before you hit that age, takum, stand up and do something. Make something of your life before it's too late. Before now, you're in the stage of living on fumes, and you're not in the stage of establishing yourself. Mipnei seva, before you hit that age of seva, takum, stand up and accomplish something. Yeah, but I think it's important. You'll hear, and you hear from me very often, that we talk about past, present, and future. And that in order to have a Jewish people, we have to have a past, present, and future. And that the only way that we can accomplish anything is by looking at our past. But when we stay in the past, so then we're in a lot of trouble. And that past has to inform our present, which is then going to guide us and direct us for the future. But I think that it goes a little bit further. We have to recognize that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. It's one of our biggest problems in organizations. It's one of our biggest problems in organized communal life, is that we think that we've arrived. Schools and institutions suffer from this. It's the people that are sending their children there now. They're the ones that are dictating policy. They're the ones that are, that are deciding the way it has to be, without recognizing that, wait a second, how did this place get here? It got here because of the previous generation. And all you're doing is standing on the shoulders of the previous generation. And if it wasn't for them, you stand and you look and you go, the view is beautiful from here. Shkayach, look down and see what you're standing on. You're standing on shoulders of people before you. This is why Yizkor is such an important thing for us. What are we doing when we're saying Yizkor? We're reminding ourselves that there was a previous generation. And anything that I've accomplished in my life I've accomplished it because of that previous generation. And I don't care if that previous generation was perfect or not perfect. Doesn't make a difference. I don't care if in our own personal lives, if they were positive role models or negative role models. At the end of the day, you are what you are because of who they were. Now, that could work positively or negatively, and it could work despite the fact that they were who they were, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're standing on their shoulders. And that's a critical thing for us to remember, and that's why old people are so critical to us. That's why there's a mitzvah in the Torah of standing up in front of an old person. And it doesn't matter whether the old person is a Torah scholar. Getting up on a bus and giving a seat to an old person is a mitzvah deoraisa. It is a Torah commandment. Not just because the poor person is standing there getting tired, and you just want to be a nice person to them. That's covered already by v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. That's covered by being a mensch. This is a special mitzvah of appreciate and venerate old people, the elders, because it's from them, it's on their shoulders that we're standing. I think it's something that's so missing in our young modern culture of trying to improve and move forward and make progress, and thinking that, look, I've spoken this out before, and I'm happy to do it again, because there's a beautiful, stunning Gemara, that the Gemara says that when Shlomo Melech died, he left a son by the name of Rechavam. Rechavam was a nice man, but not the greatest leader. And he had a lot of advisors. He had his father's advisors, Solomon, King Solomon, who there was no wars in King Solomon's time. King Solomon charged an incredible amount of taxes to his country, incredible amount of taxes, and people were happy to pay them. And he had all those old advisors, and then he had his cadre of new advisors, of his friends, of his contemporaries. His contemporaries told him, continue the taxing program, because they're used to it. People will pay the tax. They know what it is to pay taxes. They'll pay taxes. Don't worry. And you come from a good family. They liked your dad. They're going to like you. It's going to be fine. We're going to squeeze them tight. The elders said, let go of the taxes. Your dad was a certain kind of person. He could charge those taxes. You can't charge those taxes. You don't have that personality. You don't have that relationship yet. You've got to do what is appropriate and fitting for the kind of relationship that you have. Shlomo Melech was Rechavam was in a dilemma. The dilemma was, does he listen to the elders and in essence destroy the taxing program that he had, or does he listen to the youngsters and build a taxing program and ultimately build a country? The Gemara says that he made a terrible blunder. He listened to his contemporaries and he did not listen to the elders. And the Gemara says the following statement: the building of the youngsters is destruction, and the destruction of the elders is building. What the Gemara is telling us is that not all the time what appears to be progress is actually progress. Change, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And when you fix it, you're actually breaking it. And sometimes breaking something is itself, that's the building. When the elders tell you to break something, they know the history, they know the shoulders that they're standing on, and they know what they can do. When the youngsters tell you we have to modernize, we have to build, we have to change, we have to turn things around, very often, all that's doing is really destroying what was there and not rebuilding it in a sufficient and appropriate kind of way. We always have to be cognizant of our history, of what has gone on in the past and the context of where we're existing. And that's why we are so focused on our elders, because we have to be focused on the concept, not just on the elder, but on we're focused on the elders not because they can't take care of themselves. We're focused on the elders not because this is chesed and tzedakah. It is, but that could be much later. We're focused on the elders from the age of 60 because we now have to switch our mindset. We have to recognize that in order for the Jewish people to have any kind of kiyum, any kind of future, and any kind of everlastingness, we need a past, we need a future, and we need a present. And without that, we're sunk. It's not all about future. We have to shape that future, model that future off of the past. Paro turns to Moshe and he says to Moshe, you want to go out for 3 days? That was the original plan, was we were going to go for 3 days to pray to God, right? Go make some kind of festival in the desert where we were going to sacrifice and slaughter animals to God. So Paro says, you can go. You can take your elders, you can take your adults, but you can't take the kids. Moshe Rabbeinu looks at Paro and says, Bine orenu uvizkenenu nelech. With our elders and with our children, we will go. We're going to go with our future, but we're going with our past also. You can't just have one without the other, because the past reminds us that that it's not just about right now what I want it to be, but we have to shape what it is and what it should be based on what it was. I've told this story 1,000 times, but it's always appropriate. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was on an airplane with a member of Knesset. And these two elder gentlemen were traveling to America. Rabbi Yaakov was traveling with his grandchildren, with one grandchild who was taking care of him. And the member of Knesset was there with, whatever aide was with him. And the member of Knesset was astounded to see throughout the flight Rabbi Yaakov's grandchild, Zaidi, what can I get you? Zaidi, can I get you water? Zaidi, can I get you food? Zaidi, can I get you this? Zaidi, can I get you that? Zaidi has to go to the bathroom. They're walking them, taking care of them, doting over them. At the end of the trip, the member of Knesset looks at Rabbi Yaakov and says to him, how do you do that? He says, my grandchildren, I am as important to my grandchildren as the gifts that I give them. How do you travel with a grandchild, 14 hours, and all they can do is focus on you? So Rabbi Yaakov, not in a snarky way, but said to him, look, we believe in different things. said, you believe in Darwin, and I believe in Torah min hashamayim, Torah from heaven. Says, as far as your grandchildren are concerned, they're more developed than you are. You're one step closer to a monkey. Says, as far as my grandchildren are concerned, I'm one step more developed than them, because I'm one step closer to Mount Sinai and one step closer to having seen the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore, for my children, they look at me and they say, they're standing on my shoulders. They're standing on my shoulders, and that they just want to connect to me because I'm connected back to that past. Says, but for your grandchildren, it's all about the future. The past is something we're trying to leave. Nobody wants to remember that they were a monkey. Mount Zayda was a monkey, right? Nobody wants to think that way. We want to look forward. We want to look to the future. Fascinating idea. But that's the concept of 60 and 70, of why we venerate them, why we say that a seva, person who's reached a fullness of years, a person who has reached zikna, zekona chachma, because the person has acquired a person who has acquired wisdom, that because we respect that, and we have to recognize that we didn't just arrive. We're standing on other people's shoulders. Okay, so but that's me looking at older people. But why is that important for me to know that? Because you are the shoulders that your children are standing on. Take responsibility for that. Stand up and take responsibility for the position that you're in. You can't apologize for being older. You can't fade into the background because you're older. You have to recognize, when I hit 60, when I hit 70, I've now hit the place that they're standing on my shoulders. I'm that elder that the next generation is standing on the shoulders of, and I have to take that role. That's why this Mishnah is just flowing. We've learned it in pieces, but it's just flowing. It's starting with 5, and then it's going to 10, and then it's going to 15, and then 20, and then 30, then 40, then 50. And each one is a role that you play. We spoke about the last time that you have to know that you've reached this stage of development to know where you should put your energy. Same is true of 60 and 70. You have to know your role and where you have to put your energy. You are now the shoulders that the next generation is standing on. Okay, but let's push it a little bit forward. I'm gonna have a problem tonight because the wrong time was sent out twice. It should have been 8:15 tonight, not 8:30. And Daf Yomi starts at 9, and it has to start at 9 because I have to go to davening. So the only way that I can work all this out. So I think this that we're gonna actually get one more. We're gonna get one more week out of this mission, and it's fine. I mean, to learn about an 80 and a 90-year-old. Right? Of why, I mean, you can imagine what's coming, because now that we understood 60 and 70 this way, so 80 and 90, we understand this way also, that when we say that 80 is an age of strength, is amazing what an 80-year-old can accomplish, what a 90-year-old can accomplish, and what a 100-year-old can accomplish, and what we can accomplish until 120. And it's very, very, it's actually critical to know this, because we actually grow. Once we hit the age of 90, we actually grow as human beings. And I will explain why next week. Okay. I apologize that we got a little chopped off tonight, but it's okay. We're not in a rush to finish. When we finish, we finish. So Hashem, next week we'll talk about this.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Great to see everybody.
Thank you.
Your class for the morning, are you able to do the class for the women on Tuesday?
No, I have my nephew's getting married tomorrow night.
Oh, nice. Mazel tov.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, but she didn't send out anything today because there was nothing today. So hopefully she'll send it out tomorrow morning.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thanks.
so there's no class tomorrow morning. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
I'm shutting down and I'm going to turn back on for Daf Yomi.